name is Anita Foster. I am a senior here at Spelman College, International Studies major from Washington, D.C. And this is essentially my portfolio, or personal portfolio. So Dr. Price charged us with this idea of thinking about the way we are as writers. How do we mold, become writers? What our story is, and why we write daily. And then have a theme behind that, to have some kind of color scheme. So I'll explain the theme and the aspects of what's on this portrait here that I like to say. But I have it as a constitution because essentially when I thought about my mission as a writer or my journey as a writer, I often tell people I don't like to write at all. International studies major, yeah, we do reports, we do a little bit of grant writing in the professional field when you're interested in foreign policy, but it's something that you have to do to retain some kind of employment. So constantly for years, I've always told myself you have to get in the habit of writing. You have to love to write because you have to do it the rest of your life. So my journey of writing has been, I do it because I have to. So in doing that, I constantly want to improve my writing. And the beginning of my presentation, beginning of my journey, I thought about how that could happen. So I thought about a Venn diagram, and I had two ovals. I'll write it here. I'm not sure if you can see, but thought about the primary Venn diagram of two circles overlapping each other. So it's like the collegiate writing, the professional writing, and the mission is to improve writing constantly. But then I thought about this presentation, and I said, how can I portray that? I can't really overlap them, especially with the word choices I have to use and even the scale of wording that I have to use. So I came up with this color scheme, and I did that because obviously you have two primary colors, orange and red, that lap over to create your orange. Yellow and red that lap over to create your orange. And I accorded every scheme by that. So again, I have my primary stages, my middle stages when it's coming together, and then my final output. So these writings, essentially, this just explained my journey. I start off and say, I'm not a fan of writing, but I know it's something I must do. I must master the challenge of writing because good communication will always draw the thin line between employed and unemployed. So again, that's been my larger journey. To obviously stay in a job position, but then two, I want to be able to communicate. And it's something I go on to say in my thesis, that the mission is transparency, to keep up that communication so whatever I'm dialoguing about, I'm able to do that effectively. So these writings that I have here, these are all samples of my writings in my collegiate years. So this is the first example of my ADW writing, which is our African Diaspora in the World course that every first year will have to take. So this is first semester, November 20th, 2009. And then this is the first writing I did in college on a professional level with my internship, and that was Potomac Research Group, which I got published for.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize this when you first showed me this portfolio. Mm-hmm. There's one example of professional writing and one example of academic writing for each of your years.
Yeah, pretty much.
I see how this fits together.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yes.
This is more visually complex than I thought it was.
Mm-hmm. So I did that for each year too. Again, I also talked about in my thesis that it was important for me to understand what I like to write about. To which in turn helped me understand my writing style. So I've realized, which I'm going into my fourth year about, that I realized I like to do the professional writing. I like the grant writing, I like the proposal writing. In turn, it's something I do with SGA constantly. That's my favorite part. So again, it helped me analyze what my journey was in my personal writing, or even developing my style. So as I reflect over all my readings, I actually read these when I was putting it together. And there are some phrases I use in here. I was like, oh, I was completely crazy. Why would I use this? What college student would ever use vernacular? But as I go on, I begin to specify, and it's something I also say in my thesis, that I wanted to make sure that here I was just putting information and I was thinking about the topic. And in these subjects, I specified. So this is an interesting combination here because this is a project I did in the summer of 2011. That was prior to my departure for my study abroad experience in Jaipur, India. So I talked about development, or sustainable development, and women progression in India. Here is when I talk about the rise, well, the name of this project is The Rise of the Last Woman, an analysis of women's independence in 21st century Rajasthan. I said that really fast, but 21st century Rajasthan. So here's just the overall view of where women stand in independence in India currently. This is a more specific focus. This was about 15 pages, and this was 45 pages. I downsized it. I didn't include all 45, but I have some works cited on there, where I have my bibliography there, a few intro and abstract that's included in that one. But this is more specific to Rajasthan because I had a focus group. I was able to analyze and see what this means to this backward state in India. So before I jump to the 4th year, again, I just want to make sure I explain this. And it talks about my journey as a writer. It allowed me to specify my work instead of just doing a lot of surface level work that I did in these first 2 years. This 3rd year, this is when I studied abroad. So at this point, I had to learn a new language. And for me, when Dr. Price first asked me, what is writing? When I said I hate writing, I automatically thought about alphabet, the American alphabet, essentially. And I was like, I hate putting together words and, have to figure out what's the best thing to say. But she constantly told me that, or inevitably told me that writing isn't just words, it can be visual. So I was like, and it's something that I also put in my thesis that I've been told this for so long. So obviously I have an investigation and read a little more about 21st century writing styles. I grew to understand, even in India, that this is writing. This is an American alphabet, and I understand it's different with cultures. It wasn't really the aspect, but when I did this kind of writing, it was drawing for me. So I wanted to make sure I put that out because it made me understand a different level of writing and a different level of transparency and communication. So this one is my 3rd year, and again, this was more specific. So freshman year, if I were given a topic on global issues, I would have probably talked about partnerships between countries. But this is more in depth about partnerships between countries. I talked about the zero-sum aspect of developing countries not being able to get along and solidify solutions as far as environmentalism. So I had a specific focus and a specific drive for this presentation. And then again, I explained to you my thesis for study abroad. I put this in the 4th year because this is something I would use for my senior thesis. So inevitably, I was constantly working on this one. And then this is my professional writing in the 4th year. This is a proposal that I presented to Booker T. Washington High School to create the primary partnership between the schools, so Spelman College and Booker T. Washington can keep up our college readiness programs with the 2 institutions. So I have quite a few parts and sections in both of these, but here specifically I talk about the POISE Plan approach. The POISE Plan is preparing outstanding individuals for social excellence. So I talk about what that means, what do we plan to do with this, who we work with, what's our mission, how do we select our students who will work with you. So I did my best to target every part, and then I had some kind of inspiration up here, and I talked about, I gave Hillary Clinton's quote for World Population Day on July 11th. So I talked about half the world population being under 25 and the importance of targeting the youth group. So I pretty much explained this, and I wanted to make sure that I had some kind of visual, some kind of entertainment here. One, I didn't want my professor to be bored with reading things, but I want to give her a ray of understanding of what I wanted to help her understand. I wanted her to understand my form of writing, how I've transcended, how I thought I transcended, or how I thought it evolved, and she told me that I haven't. So I want to understand that midpoint where I am as a writer. And again, this all outlines, you know the color scheme, but it outlines my constitution to myself to state some commitment of improving as a writer. So these are like my amendments to core about that.
So the last thing I wanted to ask, and thank you so much for sort of giving us that overview of your progression. There's a whole lot going on with this portfolio that is more than just print.
Mm-hmm.
For example, the visual metaphor of the Constitution in the quill, the use of yellow as a beginning, orange is kind of a mix of the red and yellow, and red is kind of the where you are now.
Mm-hmm.
But another thing that really intrigues me is that you found a way to kind of hyperlink with paper by using the sheet protectors. Like you've got actual documents embedded behind those tags.
Mm-hmm.
Like on a website, those would be tags.
Okay.
And I wondered what else about this portfolio, if anything comes to mind, or how do I want to ask this question? I'll get it off the board because this makes more sense. If this were a digital portfolio, what about it would be different, and what about it would be similar? And again, I ask that because we're very interested in this class in moving between different media and thinking about what each medium offers us, like what advantages it gives us, but then also what are some of the ways it limits us or shapes the ways that we can say what we want to say. So what would this look like if I had said, I want you to do this personal portfolio, this personal literacy portfolio, and you can build it as a website, or a PowerPoint, or a Prezi.
One, I would have been able to upload the full document. So if you would like to read the document, you'll be able to see that. But then I think I could have went into a more digital understanding of what this means. So obviously some kind of Prezi or some kind of PowerPoint form to explain what I think the progression is. I don't know if I would have included more photos because I don't often take pictures of myself studying or writing papers. But again, I think it would be more, it'll be more specific as to what the writing was and how I progressed as a writer, because I had the full document there. But my little paper projector covers couldn't hold, my pleasant board couldn't hold the full document.
So that's a limitation of this medium.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very much so.
Yeah. Do you all have questions you want to ask Anita about her portfolio?
Do you guys want to know why it was important for me to do the Constitution scheme outside of making it innovative? Or
Yeah.
well, so I didn't just do this as a project. The reason why I also selected this class is because I do want to improve as a professional writer. It's something, again, I'll have to do constantly, but it's something I want to do. Maybe become a writer or a publisher, publishing author one day, just to say I did it. But I think it's important for young students to understand the importance of writing and transparency on paper and also online. So I use this because, one, I'm always in the mindset of the Constitution, political science, some kind of policy governance thing. So this was also an output of my personality. I'm not just I couldn't do just colorful paper. So at first, originally, it was just going to be black, white, and gray in the middle. But I figured I should do some kind of warm, cool stage and then getting more to that point. I didn't have any turquoise paper, so I couldn't do the blue scheme. So this is the best scheme for me. But again, this Constitution is more so an extension of my personality and the way I think constantly. And this is what this whole portfolio is for me. It's the way I think constantly, the things I think about writing about, where I think I can go in as far as development. So obviously this India piece, these 3 India pieces, environmental studies or environmental health and water conservation. And then also sitting along Gladius and understanding what Washington's effect has on small businesses. So everything that I wrote here, and obviously working with urban students in public schools and want to constantly advance them. So a lot of these elections had a personal attachment to my ideals, my interests, and I just put it on a board that connects me to that, make sure I'm constantly committed to these interests I have.
Thanks, Anita.
Okay. Do you have a question for me, Angelica? You're not in class?
Oh no, great job.
Okay.
Jasmine, how are you feeling about being videotaped? I don't know if you saw my email from last
Yeah.
Thursday.